Hello and welcome to the video. This is an overview of this thing here. This is the new GepRC SMART 35. It's a 3.5-inch micro freestyle drone. I guess you'd call it like a Super Toothpick maybe. Now I looked at a similar model a couple of weeks ago and this one is a little bit cheaper. But I want to go through this and kind of give you a little bit of a story before we get into the detail. This is actually my second one of these. I originally got sent a review unit probably 4 odd weeks ago, and that original review unit I put a load of batteries through, initially going out flying and testing it, then getting flying footage, then kind of going back to GepRC. There was a couple of things that I needed to check with them I wasn't happy with. It transpired that the one that they'd sent me originally wasn't the final production version and there were changes. So I'm very happy to say that GepRC were happy for me to send that one back, and they've sent me this one, and this is actually the production unit one. This is the one that's available from resellers and from the website. So I thought there's no point in me making a video talking about a model that you're not going to buy when I can wait and get the real one in just to check that everything is squared away and that it flies beautifully. Now this is a common problem that you tend to find with YouTube channels. As a YouTube channel with any kind of decent viewership, you tend to get sent stuff to review for free, and that's amazing. However, sometimes the kit that you're sent is what's called pre-production or kind of test production. Some of it is hand finished, and wherever that is the case, I always try and include that detail in the video. Otherwise you're watching a review, an overview of a product that's not going to be the one that you get if you then went out and bought it, and I don't think that's fair to the viewer. So with all that said, let's go through the standard stuff, unbox it, go through the specs, Betaflight setup for this one, and then go through the flying experience at the end. So as I unbox it, let me go through some of the specs and show you some close-up images. So again, this is the GepRC SMART 35 HD. This has the Vista Nebula Nano camera in it. We'll come back to that in a minute. The frame, I think you can buy it separately. It's a GEP-ST35, 155mm wheelbase with 3.5-inch props. Top plate's 2mm and the bottom plate and arm is 4mm. It's a one-piece unit. F4 base flight controller. Motors are GR1404 3850 kV motors, and the props are Emax 3.5 by 2.8 by 3 props. Weight's about 137.6 grams, but I'll show you what mine weighs in a minute. You can get it with this system as I've got it here, so I'm going to control it with the DJI FPV controller, or you can get it with a FreeSky RXSR or a TBS Crossfire Nano receiver as well. Also in the box, you probably spotted that as well as the quad, the props, there are some little foot pads. There's a silicone pad for your battery, an Allen wrench for doing up your bolts, and a couple of antenna protection tubes and a battery strap as well. One of the things that it didn't talk about on the website was these braces that you can actually use to add a little bit of additional strength in the arms if you want that. I've not found them necessary, but it's nice to have them in the kit to add that extra rigidity. DJI setup was almost on the latest and greatest version, but that works for me. So I'll enable expert mode. Again, stuff in the data flash, which means it has been tested before it left the factory. Fantastic, everything is moving beautifully and sat nice and level even on my wonky desk. Nothing really set up in here apart from serial receiver and MSP for the telemetry to the DJI Air unit. Standard stuff, no motor direction reverse, D-Shot 300, 8K gyro, 4K PID loop frequencies. It's a F4 base flight controller in this, so it's ticking away at a reasonable amount, but it's in great shape. Air mode is permanently turned on, and also quite nicely the D-Shot beacon stuff is turned on as well. There is a separate beeper in this and you'll need one. Power looks like that and works fine. Failsafe is set to drop. PID tuning, again, I'll do a dump and diff. I'm flying it on Profile 2, which is what it is supplied as. In Profile 2 in Betaflight, it tells you that it could cause flyaways and all these warnings. However, in the testing that I've done, it works great. The rate profiles are all nice. It's set for a nice crisp roll rate, so definitely set up for freestyle. Not brilliant for a beginner. You could probably dial those rates down if you're a beginner to give you a slightly more gentle response, but I'm going to fly it on Profile 2 and rate Profile 1, which is how it's supplied. Again, dump and diff below if you want to look at the details. Modes are set up like this, very basic stuff. Angle, horizon, beepers set up as well. On-screen displays are definitely going to need a visit to move things around, particularly if you're using the DJI system, so that you've got the important information on there. VTX table wasn't set on this, and again, dump and diff below if you're interested. But what does it fly like? So in terms of flying, it is no surprise. It flies really well. It's well set up. The thought and the way that it's built and put together is great. GepRC put a lot of time and effort and thought into their models, and in fact most of the main manufacturers that you'll see on the channel these days aren't the manufacturers that are in the hobby trying to make a quick buck out of the multi-rotor revolution and the explosion of quadcopters that were for sale 3-4 years ago. All the people who are in the hobby seem to be people that actually care about it, and you can really tell with models like this. Tons and tons of power, hovering at about 20-25%. Roll and flips rates are easily enough. Probably slightly high for me. I'd probably dial them back a little bit, but if you're a freestyle pilot, you can have an awful lot of fun for this. Now, how long you fly really depends on how hard you push the model. Now, gentle pootling around, I can get about 8 minutes out of a 1300 4S pack. If I fly it like a lunatic and scream it about, I will get about 4.5-5 minutes out of a 1300 4S pack. So I'm nowhere near the claimed flight times on the website from GepRC, so be aware of that. Other models that I've had in recently in the 3.5 inch class has been getting 5 minutes out of a battery half that size. So you know, just view this as a little bit of a speed machine, as a ripper. There are more efficient models in this class out there if flight time, longer flight times are something you're really interested in. But if you just want to fly it around and flip and roll and do all the kind of stuff that I'm doing here, it is fantastic. As a freestyle frame to just go out and have a ton of fun, it is brilliant. The fit and finish on the model is fantastic. The GepRC guys definitely seem to put a lot of time and effort into putting it together. Even things like the cable protectors on the arms are really cute touches. I like the way that the stack is fitted so that the 4-in-1 flight controller, ESC and everything else is kind of at the bottom, and the air unit is mounted to the top deck to give it that little bit more airflow. Optional braces for the arms are a really nice touch. I'm not flying with mine and I don't feel it needs it, but it's nice to have them there if you want it a little bit more like a tank. Betaflight setup is great. I just visit the modes and OSD tab. No variable rates or any of that gubbins on here. If you want to change the rates, just change those two profiles. But again, the profile that I'm flying on is one that Betaflight's complaining about, but actually works beautifully. Speed is very good with lots of power for very spirited flying, and the noise level isn't bad. It's typical for this kind of model and size. I only found it became something that you really notice when you were doing punch outs and high throttle maneuvers. You could hear that from the other end of the field, but the rest of the time it wasn't bad at all. Tune is good and the rates are set for nice crisp rolls, so if you like flipping and flopping around, this will do the job for you. Only a handful of things that we need to talk about with this. The first one and the big one is the fact that this is the Vista Nebula Nano camera, and I am not a fan of this camera at all. Although it doesn't look too bad, things like washing out of the colours, so some of the treetops, even in bright sunshine with a beautiful green foliage, looks like they're covered in snow, problems with smearing at the edge of the image, the fact it seems to be locked on mine to 16:9, and you have all that prop in view. Unfortunately, it's the thing that lets this model down. I would have actually preferred to have a version of this and pay an extra $20 or $30 and get the Nebula Pro on it instead, rather than the Nebula Nano. That would have made it a perfect model. Only one set of props on this. The arms and bottom plate are one piece, so if you are looking to snap it, then unfortunately you're going to have to replace the whole thing. That's pretty common on these size models to keep the weight down, and to be honest, with all the flying I've been doing in the past 4 weeks with this version and its predecessor, with all the crashes and bounces I've had, it has just shrugged them off, so you're going to have to work incredibly hard to break it. Sadly, with the kind of current draw that this is pulling, I'm not sure this is an ideal candidate for lithium ion support. I think if you want lithium ion support, there are other models, I'll talk about that are probably better suited for you from GepRC. And obviously, don't forget, there's no GPS, and we only have the motor beeper in here to help you find it. So this again isn't an Explorer class, this is just for ripping around. So if you want a fast, powerful 4-inch quad and don't want the Explorer extras, then this is a great choice. But personally, I'd swap the camera for a Nebula Pro. If you want a 4-inch quad with longer flight times, with all those kind of Explorer things, then the Baby Crocodile 4-inch from GepRC is still my top choice and my go-to for those times when I want to have long, lazy flights and explore the countryside. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.